Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Grudemlink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to talk about the biggest hot shots and have nots of the last couple of weeks. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, the guy who makes me sigh, Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
I feel great now. Oh yeah, love this. Just keep it coming, Nate. All the compliments, the superlatives. It's a good day today. We went out for a family skate today, and yeah, we're trying to build some joy of skating and hockey for my son, and it's hard with the 5-year-old, because first off, skating is hard. It's really hard. You fall down, you hurt yourself. But yeah, we had a great day today. He did really well. He was kind of balancing his self, and it was good. And then I also, these matchups, oh my god, I just want to say too, what a service we provide here, Nate. We podcast on a Sunday night while our matchups are hanging in the balance. This is insane. I'm trying very hard not to watch the Dallas Detroit game because that's going to affect my mood, maybe halfway through the pod. So I don't know, but it's been a good week. I'm finally getting healthy here, and man, it took a long time, but how you doing, buddy? How was your week and your weekend here?
It's been pretty good. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned it. I took my oldest skating today and she did first shift, did that program.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's like a Friday, Saturday. I know your son did it as well. Friday, Saturday for 3 weeks. So 6 times on the ice in a quick succession there, and she really took to it. She was like begging to play more hockey, so we got her into like this fundamentals thing where they're teaching a lot of skating stuff still, but like letting them play with the puck a little bit, play against each other. And I hadn't been out just like public skating. We used to like I've just been public skating with her pretty constantly for the last couple of years since
Yep.
she's been old enough to do it, and just slowly kind of building her up that way. But man, the difference today when she got back on the ice, she was just flying around the rink. I was like, this is the same kid. So that
Love
was pretty
that.
cool to see.
Yeah.
After just, I don't know what it is, like putting on all the equipment, like something about it, like flipped the switch for her. So that's been exciting for her and for me. Like I've always said, I like don't want to force my kid to like hockey the way I like hockey because I'm like pretty conscious that that's definitely something I could end up doing. But she's genuinely like just over the moon every time I tell her that there's hockey today. She's like, "Yes, let's go."
Oh, buddy, that's the dream, man. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So that's fun. What's less fun is me sweating this matchup in the Experts League. Less than zero point 0.5 points separating us right now. I've got he's got Alex Lyon going. I've got Johnston, Harley, and DeBrinket all going. 7 minutes left in the third. I just need something, please. Empty net assist for Wyatt Johnson. Let's make it happen, please. I
Buddy,
don't know.
I got to say, I mean, Simon Edmondson scoring a goal, that puts me in a really bad spot.
Oh
So
no.
Micah Kupfel now is 209.3 to 209.1.
Ooh,
All right, so I'm winning by point 0.2. I got Patrick Kane going. I mean, please, buddy, can
something.
you help me out?
Patrick Kane's been doing some work for the last little bit. He might be taking a well-deserved break tonight, but
Oh, God.
either way, Blake, we better get into some newsies. Let's get it kicked off with the big topic on everybody's mind. JT Miller almost traded on Saturday. They were talking about scratching him from the game. Elliot Friedman reporting. Then, like, doesn't go through. Something happens. The trade gets pulled back by one party or the other. Sounds like he was going to the Rangers, right? That's what I
Yep.
heard. If it went through, but then like goes out and plays like actually a really good game. We were talking just in the last pod on Friday about how things hadn't been going well. He's getting benched like well, not benched necessarily, but less ice time than he's ever had in a Vancouver Canucks uniform, basically. And then he goes out and plays head to head versus McDavid and goes nuts. Well, goes nuts, has a couple of assists, and plays really well. So I don't know what's going on now, but what do you think about GT Miller? If you think, like, do you think he still goes to the Rangers? If he does, is that a good spot, bad spot? Like, what's your prognosis now that, I mean, it feels inevitable to me at least. What's your take on it from closer to the action there in Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when something like this happens, like he was almost benched, and then Elliot Friedman comes out and talks about it right before the game, it seems like a foregone conclusion at this point. Like, how's he supposed to carry on? Showing up, putting out his best effort, like when they're actively trying to trade him, and it's that close. So I just think the whole thing is overblown, unless there's like obviously there's stuff we don't know and we can't know, but it feels like this is been helped along by Vancouver media and just us not shutting up about this rift, right? And now we're
Mm.
trading away a guy that is a really valuable piece for a playoff team. Yeah, he's a dingus, sure. But I mean, we've all played with our dinguses, all right? We've done it. All right, it's part of our lifestyle. But yeah, I just think, yeah, if he does, like, it makes sense that he would go to the Rangers now. I think like the cat's out of the bag. They're going to try and do something here. And I've heard Alexis Lafreniere is kind of the guy that's a little bit of the sticking point. So we'll see what happens. I don't think there's a situation where the Vancouver Canucks win a trade when they're trading JT Miller. So, but the season's kind of gone off the rails a little bit. So we're going to have to see what happens. But yeah, it's just a rough situation all around.
Yeah, yeah. There's no two ways about that for sure. I mean, it feels like it can't get much worse for JT Miller the way that the season's gone, right? But definitely I don't think he's gonna like go somewhere and then suddenly just pop right back to what he was doing last season for Vancouver. I think we talked about it. Like the season that he had last year is probably a career season for him, just based on a lot of the percentages we look at, the luck metrics, etc. So I don't think you're just gonna like see him magically materialize in a new position and suddenly be JT Miller of 2023-24, but you have to view it as a general positive for him at this point. Yeah, maybe if somebody got a deal done based on me saying that I would consider trading for him on Friday before all this news
Yep.
broke, then you'd probably feeling pretty good about that. But I don't know how much credit I can really take for that take. Let's keep going. Let's talk about Connor McDavid. Gonna have a hearing for cross-checking Connor
Yep.
Garland in the head. It seemed like it was just a bit of gamemanship by Connor Garland there, end of the game, and he's like, okay, even if I take a penalty here, like what's the worst that's gonna happen? Like, I can try to piss off McDavid and take him out of the play, take their best player out of the play. I think it makes sense. I don't think he was like doing anything nasty. He was just holding on to him, basically,
Yep.
like wrestling with him. So McDavid got pissed off. I think that game didn't go the way they wanted, obviously, and it was probably just heat of the moment. But yeah, you can't get your makes sense. Austin Matthews got suspended. His only suspension was a similar thing. He got pissed off with Rasmus Dahlin, got his cross
Yep.
check up too high and hit him in the face, and it was 2 games, I think, for that one. So probably something similar there. Rupe Hintz is killing us once again with these game time decisions. Missed Sunday here as well. Again, we'll get into it this week with Dallas and see where he's at for the next game. But yeah, it feels like deja vu all over again with Rupe Hintz game time decision scenarios. UPL goaltender there in Buffalo day to day, undisclosed injury. I heard somebody speculating about a head injury. I
Mm.
don't honestly know what to make of that, so don't take my word for that. But that was somebody on Twitter with a Sabres account, so take that for whatever it's worth. Mikhail Sergachev, upper body injury, missed the game for the Utah Hockey Club on the weekend. Michael Kesselring took power play one in his absence, so Sergachev right now considered game time decision for Monday's game. So I don't know if you're really going out to add Kesselring just for maybe one game. So I don't know if you're really making any major decisions based off this, but at least worth noting Sergachev dealing with something there and maybe not in your lineup back on Monday. Tyler Toffoli missed Saturday as well, late scratch there, and also ruled out already for Monday. I did see, so going to be not having Tyler Toffoli in your lineups, and he's actually been pretty good this year. A little bit of a find there on San Jose Sharks, getting some Celebrini boost as well. So it's been a good spot for Tyler Toffoli to do what he does best. Lastly, here, Linus Allmark is traveling with the team. Not really sure still how far away he is, but has to be a good sign, right? A lot of these guys stay at home to get the rehab going if they need to, but if he's traveling, then must not be a situation where he needs like a lot of attention at home still. So that's a good spot for Linus Allmark. I guess I can mention there was some stuff on Twitter. Sean Keefe talking about the Devils have a lot of illness going through the dressing room. So if you needed another reason to drop the guys that we talked about in the waiver wire show on the bad schedule week that the Devils have this week, maybe one more thing there. I think I just about got it all, Blake. Did I miss anything, or you want to weigh in on any of these that are hurting you on a personal level?
No, I like when players get injured, like Sergachev. It's just it's good to find these data points, like who gets power play one, right? That's
Right.
something we need to look at in fantasy hockey. This guy gets injured,
Yeah.
who steps up? Those are just good data points for us to know when we're looking to stash players, like going into our playoffs, right? And that's why we got to keep like a keen eye on some of these injuries because there's some opportunity there. Like if Sergachev was out for longer, yeah, Kesselring would be an ad to me. Like he's power play one, so there you go.
For sure. Let's move into the hot shots. Get it started
Woo!
here with Philip Forsberg. Philip Forsberg, hopefully you were listening when we were talking about Forsberg ad nauseum as a buy low candidate for the last, I don't know, like 6 weeks maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, finally busting through in a big way here. 6 goals, 9 points in his last five now, over 19 minutes a night, which is what he usually does. First in league in shots per 60, second in shot attempts per 60 over these 5 games, 48th in individual scoring chances for per 60, so not actually as dangerous as he normally is. 12th in Corsi 4 per 60, 24 scoring chances 4 per 60, all kind of in line with what he's done on the season. It's a 27 goal, 76 point pace for Forsberg now. I think we should expect these goals to keep going in. He's still only shooting 9.5% on the season. That's going to get better. What's your take on Forsberg at this point? Where would you rate him moving forward in terms of goal and point pace?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this is what we expected, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
know what this player does, and there was just so many changes in Nashville coming into the season, and it's not just a new face in a new place that we need to be wary of. It's like what happens to the
yeah,
rest of the guys that are still on the team, right? And I think
yeah,
the addition of Steven Stamkos in particular was it changed things for Philip Forsberg, right? We've talked about Stamkos on the power play is sort of become the guy that Philip Forsberg used to be on the power play, right? So everyone's kind of changing roles in it, and that takes a little while, right? But obviously they've put this line together with Marchessault, Stamkos, and Forsberg, and they're cooking, right? Like that is, in fact, like Nashville is really reliant on that line because they don't have anybody else, right? Like obviously,
yeah,
yeah, they got Ryan O'Reilly, they got Gustav Nyquist doing stuff, but I mean, it's really like ride or die with the top line there. And yeah, I love what I'm seeing. Like Forsberg chucks pucks with the best of them. It is interesting to me that the scoring chances aren't really there with Forsberg, right? Like that's something he does, pretty well on he has previously, right? They're down a little bit this season. But yeah, he just chucks pucks and we have to trust that, right? And he plays a ton of minutes. He's on power play one. I think rest of season, like we should probably at least point per game Forsberg. I think that's, that feels good to me. 75 to 80 point Forsberg rest of season with a bunch of goals. I think that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, I think that does make sense. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted there watching this beautiful Wyatt Johnson
I
goal
know, buddy.
on
I
the
didn't want to say
repeat.
anything, but you got it, buddy.
That pretty much locks up the Experts League matchup. Gonna stay in first place there. I have to talk about it because I got a big old stupid grin on my face right now. So
Woo!
let's go, Wyatt Johnson. Yeah, I think Johnson's going to pop off the back half of this year. Really do think that that's something that's going to happen. And Robertson, foreshadowing, going to be talking about him. He's popping off as well.
My man.
Back to Forsberg. Yeah, I think for myself, if I'm just gonna like guess at what his rates are gonna be, I don't think it's gonna be all that far off from where I had him at the start of the season. At the start of the season, I projected him for 43 goal, 90 point pace. Maybe I would take the points pace down just a touch, but I still think he can be a 40 plus goal scorer as a pace for the rest of this season, and he's showing you why right now. So I think that's where I'm at on Philip Forsberg. Let's get to Vegas here because we got a little bit of a secondary connection happening for Vegas at the moment, kind of taking up some slack from the big guns there. Thomas Hurdle and Pavel Dorofiev. Hurdle's got 4 goals, 9 points in his last 5 games all of a sudden, and Dorofiev coming along for the ride, 5 goals, 7 points in his last 5, both over 18 minutes a night, both terrific underlying stats. Hurdle, 10th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, Dorofiev 17th, like they're right there neck and neck with each other. Obviously, finding some chemistry together and some magic. Dorofiev has kind of been this goal scoring guy. Like, if you look at his pace on the season, it's a 34 goal, 50-point pace. Kind of giving me some Kirill Marchenko vibes a little bit from a few years
I
ago,
like that.
is Dorofiev. So take that for whatever it's worth. Hurdle, you look up and, like, on the season, this guy's ranked 17th in the league in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. And I kind of poo pooed him in the past as a guy that I didn't really think that we were going to get something from, but maybe I should have been looking a little harder at what he's been able to do under the hood and put some respect on this man's name. What do you think about this duo, and how far do you think they can take this connection?
It's great to see right now. I do have some concerns, and we've shared this already with Dorofiev and Victor Olofsson and their roles on the power play.
Yeah.
So sort of interchanging there. So there is a little bit of hesitation, but why would they change it right now? Like, these guys are cooking, right? And that Vegas power play is cooking. Hurdle has 4 power play points in his last 5 games as well. So, I mean, he's really found his role on that power play. I think that's really important. And at 5-on-5, the numbers are up as well. Like, his shots on goal per 60 are up like about a shot and a half over what they were last year at 5-on-5, and the shooting percentage is down. So he might have a little room to grow there. The scoring chances are up. I love that. And the on ice shooting percentage is down. So I think this kind of makes sense. I feel like Thomas Hurdle is kind of regressing a little bit to the mean in a positive way. This is a guy that he can do stuff. He's a secondary scorer there. But when you throw a guy like Dorofiev on there, like, he's got 2 big time shooters flanking him, right, with Victor Olofsson
Mm-hmm.
and Dorofiev. And I don't know. I like the situation there in Vegas. It is a bit of a surprise to me, but I mean, what is his pace right now? Like, um, yeah, 62 points. That seems pretty nice. I like that. Almost feels like a potential floor, but
Mm.
maybe not like a real high ceiling, like maybe a 70-point ceiling, maybe, right? Like, that would be everything going well. But I like where this player is right now, and I like his situation there in Vegas. And then in terms of Dorofiev, like, if this guy can maintain power play 1, we're looking at a stud here. Like, his ice time is way up. He played 20 minutes in the last game here against Chicago. I love that.
Yeah.
87% power play share. Like, he's been getting all the minutes, buku minutes on power play. And this is a really good shooter, folks. Like, this guy reminds me of Pedersen, kind of the way he sets up on the flank and just fires away one-timers. He's really good at that. And obviously we know Vegas has amazing facilitators, especially Jack Eichel, and an
Mm-hmm.
amazing power play quarterback in Shea Theodore.
Yep.
So they whip the puck around really well on that team, and this guy's at the end of passes currently, and it's working out really well for him. So, yeah, like I gave my thoughts on Hurdle there. I think Dorofiev, it's all dependent on that power play 1 deployment, right? Because we've seen his
Mm-hmm.
minutes fall off a cliff when he's not getting that, but right now he's getting prioritized, and I think you got to stay in the fire with this player. And yeah, like, I love the Marchenko comparison there. He's all goals, no assists this year, isn't he? So, yeah, I like him for 50 points moving forward. I think that makes sense. But I think there's a ceiling there that's we can't really figure out for now because of the way he's being deployed.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to note a couple of things on Dorofiev still, because I do really, really like the player. I was really unconvinced that he was going to get
Mhm.
even top 6 minutes at any point this season because he really didn't get that last year. The underlying metrics have always looked good with Dorofiev, which I did mention. He's 7th in shots per 60 on the season, 16th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 on the season amongst all forwards. Terrific underlying numbers there, just over 16 minutes average time on ice, and he's shooting 14%, which I feel like is sustainable for him. Like, everything is sustainable
Mhm.
at a 16-minute level for him to hit a 34 goal pace on the season so far. Like that to me is really exciting for a player. When I look at a guy who's not even getting prime minutes on the season, right now he's getting even more, but not getting prime minutes in terms of the season long pace and still on a 34 goal pace, that's exciting stuff for me. And I like to see it with Dorofiev. I like that he honestly has not had much of a fall off, even when he's gone down the lineup. Like the
Mhm.
numbers have taken a bit of a hit, as they will when you're playing with lesser players, but not to the point where you're like, okay, he's just being held up by the players that he's playing with. I
Yeah.
think there's something here with Dorofiev for sure. I think he can be like a star level 30 plus goal scorer every single year from here on out if Vegas will continue to deploy him. I think they'd be insane not to. I think Victor Olofsson is just kind of like a one trick pony with the shot. I think Dorofiev's got a little bit more to his game, a little bit more untapped potential. That's my take. Whether or not Vegas as a team decides to lean on him the rest of the year is still obviously up for debate. So that's the part that does worry me about Dorofiev, but I think the potential is sky high here. As it goes with Hurdle, yeah, I think you're probably right on there. It's hard to see him with much more than a 70-point ceiling in his current situation. That being said, he is getting more minutes now. If he can keep up, maybe not this level of play, obviously, it's hard to keep up 9 points for every 5 games, but if he can keep up some scoring, maybe he does continue to work his way into more minutes, and that can kind of boost his production. Again, looking under the hood, I don't see any unsustainability in the 62-point pace so far, so add a little bit of minutes to that and now you're talking 65 to 70 range. I think that's at least a possibility for Hurdle moving forward. Let's go to Seattle and talk about the one thing that seems to be going right for them at the moment. Capo Caco to Jaden Schwartz for goals all over the place, apparently. Kako's got 3 goals, 8 points in his last five. Schwartz has 3 goals, 7 points. Kako 17 and a half minutes, Schwartz a titch under 18 and a half. Pretty big difference in the metrics
Yep.
between these two guys on individual level, at least. Kako is 298th in shots per 60, 308th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, whereas Jaden Schwartz 14th in shots per 60 and 90th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Schwartz also has better numbers in the on ice numbers, not as good as the individual numbers, but yeah. I know what my take is on these two players. I think you can probably guess it, Blake. I haven't done this a few times with me, but tell me what you're thinking of these guys and if there's something more than just a quick hot streak happening.
Um, it's a hot streak, right? I mean, we like it's Seattle as well, so I mean, we got to bake in some variance there. But right now, this line is really cooking. It's Jaden Schwartz, it's Capo Caco, and it's Matty Beniers, right? And they're getting all the minutes and they're doing something with it, right? Obviously, Jaden Schwartz is the guy you'd be interested in of these players because of the underlying metrics, right? They're all getting if everything's equal. Jaden Schwartz has the better metrics, the individual metrics, and he's on power play one, right? Or what they call power play one there in Seattle, right? With Chandler Stevenson on there, buddy. Any power play with Chandler Stevenson, that's the one I want to be on. All right. But they're doing stuff out there, and they're kind of getting that 1A power play treatment. So yeah, it's interesting. I like what I see from Kako there. It's a nice spot that he's landed in. Like right off the bat, his even strength ice time is up 3 minutes, or just over 2 minutes. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what he wanted. I really did feel like he was being held back there in New York and sort of mismanaged a little bit. The same way I think we could say Alexis Lafreniere was until they finally put him on a line with Trocheck and Panarin, and he just went bonkers last year, right? But
Mhm.
Kako never really got that opportunity. So it's a good spot for him. But I mean, he's the facilitator there. His IPP at even strength is 90% right now in Seattle. That's not that doesn't make sense. He's shooting less in Seattle than he did in New York. So that's not a good sign. His shooting percentage is higher. So that's not a good sign. And his scoring chances for are lower. Okay, so I think you're picking up what I'm putting down, folks. This is not sustainable what Kako's doing, but it's really nice. Like, when a player gets into a heater like this, they can build confidence, right? And maybe
Mhm.
those metrics do come up, right? I'm not ruling it out. I think he landed in a good spot, but in terms of these two players, I'm not really interested in either. I think Jaden Schwartz would be the guy I'd go with because of sort of how he's performing individually. But yeah, it's Seattle, and I'm still not interested.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. Kako, I think you're right. He did land in a good spot, a spot, maybe the only spot where he's going to get a decent amount of ice time like this, 17 and a half minutes, as I mentioned in the last five. But that still doesn't mean that I'm really interested. If I had if I had streamed him and I needed his streaming spot, I would drop him tomorrow, even in the midst of this hot streak. Personally, it's just the way I go about it. Jaden Schwartz, though, with those underlying metrics, the shot production as of late, I I still think that Jaden Schwartz has a bit of the Nino Niederreiter in him, where he
Mhm.
goes hot and then goes ice cold and gets deprioritized again in this Seattle egalitarian environment that they run over there. But yeah, I think that while he's running hot like this and the underlying metrics are looking good, I would continue to run with him, but I would have a pretty itchy trigger finger with Schwartz just given the history there as well. All right, let's move over to Long Island. Brock Nelson finally arriving to the 2024-2025 season. Took all of 2024 to get here, but Brock Nelson does have 3 goals and 7 points in his last five, skating 20 minutes a night now. 96th in shots per 60, 78th individual scoring chances for per 60, 78th in Corsi for per 60 as well, and 58th in on ice scoring chances for per 60. What do you think about Brock Nelson's recent hot streak here? They've obviously changed around some lines. What's your take on Nelson, the line mates, the situation? Do you think we're back to 70-point Brock Nelson that we got used to the last 3 years, or is there still maybe some pains under the hood?
Oh God, I don't know. This is a guy I've made fun of at nauseum over the years, but he's a guy that's been valuable for fantasy. But he's having a down year. There's no question. 28 points in 45 games. It's a 51-point pace. That stinks. All right, and that a 51-point pace and Brock Nelson's face in his headshot. Now it makes sense, right? Like he looks like he's holding a fart in, and that's that's fine. I don't know. I'm going with that. But when you dig in on the metrics, like it's nice to see what he's doing here, but also Maxim Siplikov is going to be out, right? And he was out last game. So like you said, the lines are in a little bit of a blender there. He's playing with Anthony Duclair now and Kyle Palmieri on his line, which has worked out pretty well. But it's the power play stuff too that I found pretty interesting. Like this is a guy that got 19 power play points last year. He only has 2 power play points this year, and
Mm.
that's the story on New York, there on New York, on the island in New York. Um, yeah, the power play has been terrible, and I think it's lopping off a bunch of point production from a bunch of their stars, right? And Brock Nelson's no different, and he's getting less time out there on the power play. So, yeah, long story short, I feel like this is good. Obviously, this player is in there. He has the bones of this player. He's decent metrics, and they're starting to come up again. But I'd like to see him on power play 1 before I think that he's going to get back to a 70-point pace. I think him with his current power play deployment is probably a 55-point pace. Brock Nelson.
Yeah, so in this last game, he did play with Lee Horvat Barzal Dobson, it looks like. So that's the spot that you want him to be in. Whether that lasts beyond one game, it was only one
Mhm.
power play.
Yeah, yeah,
And it was still pretty split. Like they came off after a minute 03 and the other power play went on. So yeah, that's one data point. I'd like to see some more there for sure with Brock Nelson, and the fact that he has been moved around and they have played with those units definitely gives you more pause than you had in the past. That being said, I totally agree. The bones of the player are still there. I don't think there's anything that I can see that to necessarily suggest that he can't get back to that 70-point pace, that 30, 35 goal, 70-point pace that he has done in years past.
yep,
But he absolutely does have to have that top power play deployment, and he has to have like some kind of wingers. No more of this like trying to have a top nine
yeah.
in
No
the
one can
island
finish
there.
over there.
Yeah, it is a problem that no one can finish over there. He's got to be one of those guys who can finish. So, yeah, I hope that this is just a sign of more things to come. I mean, I love the 20 minutes average time on ice over the last 5 games. If you can keep that up, that's obviously a huge boon for his potential for fantasy moving forward. I mean, I wouldn't mind like adding him just if the schedule lines up for your fantasy playoffs and you're in a position to do so, and somebody's like, I can finally trade Brock Nelson for something. If that's their mindset, and you can get Brock Nelson, and you're in a spot where you can afford to do so and take that risk, I don't mind it because you can
Yep.
still probably buy him at less than that kind of 70-point pace that you're hoping he gets to. And if you can buy it less than that, then you're probably going to come out at least even, maybe ahead. So that's my take on Brock Nelson, but it's definitely a lot less comfy than where we thought we were with the player at the start of the season. Talking about players who have made us uncomfy this season, Jason Robertson Now with the goal and an assist in this game today, has 5 goals, 8 points in his last five, 19, over 19 minutes average time on ice in the last 5 games. Now that's what we wanted to see. 29th in shots per 60, 12 shot attempts per 60, still down at 149th in individual scoring chances for per 60. 58th in on ice Corsi 4 per 60, 84th on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. On the season now, it's a 27 goal, 75-point pace for J Rob. What's your temperature on J Rob now, Blake? He's been talked about as one of the biggest busts of the season. Now you look up and he's on a 75-point pace. Maybe it's not what we expected, but it's no longer, biggest bust of the year kind of territory.
Biggest bust of the year. I wouldn't mind checking that out. I don't know where I'm going. I'm happy. I'm so happy. This is a good data point just for fantasy hockey in general. Like, sometimes you just have to be patient. You can't just bounce guys because they're not performing to the level that you want to, right? Like there's so many factors that go into this. And I think there's a couple factors with J-Rob, but one of them was, he was coming off a foot injury where he couldn't train properly. He couldn't skate. He couldn't do the same things in training camp that he normally does, right? So I think there was a slow start because of that. He's not a great skater to begin with, and now you got a foot injury. Like, yeah, he came out of the gates real slow. And then the second factor is obviously the second line there in Dallas: Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, and Mason Marchment just popping the hell off. And they've done that for a long time, right? So now Seguin and Marchment are out of the lineup. So there's really no option. Like they can't just be like, you know what, the second line's going today, let's roll with them. It's like, no, let's put J-Rob out here for 20 minutes a night because that's what you should be doing anyway. All right. But, he's clearly over, whatever he was ailing him in the first little bit of the season there. I think, it's a good spot. And then, I don't know, I dug in on some of his numbers here, like 5-on-5. Yeah, his IPP is pretty high, but all the other metrics are way down. Like shots and goal per 60 down, scoring chances per 60 down, and on ice shooting percentage is down, right? But you mentioned his like season long metrics; they aren't terrible, right? Like he's 59th in shots and goal per 60, 36 in individual Corsi for. That says to me he's cooking on the power play, like metrics wise, right? And we know that the Dallas power play has been hot garbage this year. So there's a bunch of things that have sort of amalgamated to equal this really slow start for Jason Robertson. But I love what I'm seeing lately, right? First off, the deployment, and then second off, the metrics coming along with it. So he looks confident out there. I feel like, yeah, we're back to regular J-Rob. It will be interesting when Mason Marchment gets back in the lineup. What do they do? Right. Like, and Hintz too. Hintz is out as well. And now J-Rob's playing with Wyatt Johnston and Evgeny Dadonov, and they look good. They look really good at 5-on-5. So we'll see what happens when these players come back off injury. But I think Robertson started to separate himself from the pack a little bit, and I hope he gets prioritized moving forward. I think, we could see like an 85-point pace J-Rob moving forward, and I feel good about that.
Yeah. I've said for a long time now that I think J-Rob rest of season is probably a point per game player. I thought that he was a 90-point player. That was what my projection was on him at the start of the season. Just given the situation there and how they've deprioritized his line at different times and moved him around and done different things. And he has done different things as well, as you mentioned, with the metrics being down a little bit. I kind of taken 8 to 10 points off the top there and put him more in the point per game range, and I'm still standing by that. It's a good hot streak here, and just honestly some equalization of a lot of percentages, kind of regression coming through for him. I still think he's got more in the on-ice shooting percentage. He could be more efficient there, and I think that probably does come through a bit. But the IPP is pretty hot at 82%, so maybe it just kind of evens out a little bit, and he ends up kind of exactly there. Point per game pace rest of season is where I put it for J-Rob. But I'm with you. Like, immensely talented player. Love that things are turning around for him. And maybe this is just a spot where, the confidence comes through and the coach keeps leaning on him just because he's been so electric. 5 goals in the last 5 games. Like, you going to really stop giving that guy minutes? Maybe. It is still Dallas. But yeah, definitely got to see what happens when they get healthy. If they do manage to get everyone healthy at any given moment. So yeah, that's the spot that we find ourselves in with Jason Robertson. I don't think my take on the player has honestly changed that much over the last month or so. Moving on to Roman Josi in Nashville. Don't look now, but Nashville won 3 straight, 5 of the last 7. I still think they're in for a long haul if they're trying to still make the playoffs this year, but they're winning some tough games at least. Not to mention Yossi playing 31 minutes 25 seconds against Chicago the other night. That was a big
Hell
one.
yes.
Average 27 minutes average time on ice in the last 5 games. He's got a goal and 7 points in those 5 games. 51st shots per 60, 32nd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 amongst all defensemen. For Yossi, that represents probably one of the worst stretches of his career. But yeah, still right up there on the season. 10th in shots per 60, 6th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 16 goals, 64-point pace now on the season. What's your temperature on Yossi? We're comfortably drafting him in the early second round. Blake, would you still take him there, or do you think he's fallen back from that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe like hindsight, yeah, I wouldn't take him there based on the play of the team, but it's not
Right.
the player, right? Like
Yeah.
Roman Yossi is easily an early second rounder for me in drafts. Like he's that dude, right? He's amazing, and he's still like with the way how poor that Nashville has played, he still is on a 64-point pace, and I think there's still some room for him to grow there. His goals on the power play, not very good, and again. You got Steven Stamkos in here, one of the best power play players in the game. That's going to change the way your power play looks. And there's some growing pains still going on there. But I do think that Roman Yossi has much more to give on the power play in terms of goal scoring. And I absolutely trust this player. He's the one that's driving play. He's been good, even though the team has been bad. And I think there's still a lot of room there. I don't have too much to say on this player, just that I'm excited about Yossi. And I still think he's a potential buy low. All those 7 points in the last 5 games might be a hard sell for you. But I mean, if people are looking at, where they drafted him and where they think he might be going, you might still be able to get a piece of Roman Yossi.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting that, some of the metrics aren't quite as good as they have been in years past. Like the shots per 60, individual scoring chances 4 per 60 are a little down from years past. Scoring chances 4 per 60, the on ice number down a little bit as well. That being said, the on ice shooting percentage you feel like should rebound a little bit if the team starts to convert a bit more,
Yep.
and you see the signs of that with Forsberg being on this list here. So yeah, overall, I think Yossi can be a 70-point defenseman, but maybe not like point per game or in that range like we were potentially anticipating at the beginning of the year. So I do think that there is an adjustment with Yossi. Like for me, he's probably sliding into the third round, but I'd still comfortably take him there in a lot of the kind of points-based formats that we like to play in. So yeah, that's where I'm at with Yossi. I think he, in whether or not you want to say it's him or the team environment solely, like there's probably a little bit of shared blame there, but I do think that he's a little bit back from where we thought, but still an elite offensive defenseman and fantasy defenseman. Last one on the list here, Mason Lowry. I've been getting some questions about Lowry in the Discord. He's got a goal, 5 points in the last 5 games, just over 19 minutes, average time on ice. This is a guy who's been taken over with Charlie McAvoy out of the lineup, Hampus Lindholm out of the lineup. Neither of those seem like they'll be out for too much longer. Last I checked, you can correct me there, Blake, if I'm wrong, but I think that Lowry, for me, is not a player of major interest. He's in a nice spot and he's been able to facilitate some stuff on the power play. Um, that's that's kind of it to me. Like I think he's a guy who can fill in and be relevant for a short time, but I don't think this is a guy who's honestly challenging Lindholm and McAvoy for top power play minutes when everybody's healthy there. What's your take on the player?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a real high ceiling for this guy, but I do think that he might challenge them for time. Like they were doing that while McAvoy was in the lineup, right? Like they put McAvoy to power play 2 randomly, and Lowry was getting some run there. Nothing crazy, but I mean, yeah, we need to temper expectations here. This guy is far from a league winner, right? He's a good NHLer, right? And I think this has been a good showing for him this year. And I love that he's getting power play 1 with all these boys out, right? Like, he's doing stuff with that. 5 points in 5 games. That's nothing to sneeze at. He has 3 of those points on the power play, and Pasta's finally starting to cook. So I think, yeah, in the short term, this is a guy that can be added and if you need some points, right? But other than that, like rest of season, Mason Lowry, he's going to go back to a streamer level pretty quick. I sort of liken him to like a guy like Brant Clark, maybe. He's getting a little bit more time, but Clark is better offensively. So it's kind of, if that interests you, then yeah, pick him up. Like I grabbed him in a spot just for the opportunity. Like he's quarterbacking power play 1 in Boston, and they're starting to play a little bit better. I mean, if that works for your team, go pick him up, but just don't expect it all season.
Yep, I think that's A fair take. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the timetable is on Lindholm, but he has been skating for over a week at this point. Um, yeah, there's definitely almost 2 weeks at this point. So there's definitely some progress there towards him returning. And then McAvoy, there's just not really an update. It's a nagging injury. Got to a point where he needs a couple days off, was the
Hmm.
tweet
Hmm.
that I saw. So there's not really anything going on there. Um, yeah, I just think I don't think low rise this dude.
No.
That's kind of
Yep.
where it ends for me. In terms of like fantasy, like yeah, he can be relevant for a minute. He can perform at maybe a 50-point pace if things kind of go his way. So like I'm not saying don't pick him up. I'm just saying that in terms of long term upside, or in terms of is he gonna like hold on to this role for the rest of the season now that he's got it, and like he's never going to look back, and he's going to be the power play one defenseman for the Boston Bruins for the next decade, like that to me is not
Nah.
happening with this player. So that's where I'm at on that. All right. Moving over to Patreon, supporter tier $2 a month gets you access to patron only live shows. Apple's tier $8 a month gets you the patron only live shows, patron only Discord channels, gets you show notes, notes for this show and for the waiver wire show, get you all those ad drop infos, the schedule stuff that you need to know to optimize your week. And then it also gets you the Apples and Genos player evaluation tool, which Blake and I are constantly referencing as we work through our evaluations of these players for you. Geno's tier exists for the true degenerates, $15 a month. All the previous perks mentioned, plus every single one of your questions guaranteed to be answered by yours truly. Blake, are you ready to talk about some have nots?
Let's talk about these boys, these absolute plugs.
Plug of all time, Brady Kachuk off the top.
Super plug.
Uh, Yeah, it's been a rough go for Brady Kachuk. It shows up in the sheet as the last 5 games that he hasn't had any points. Is it longer than it? Yeah, it's 7 games now without a point for Brady Kachuk, which
Stuff.
is just kind of insane for the amount of points that he's been able to put up on a yearly basis. It's a 32 a goal, 68-point pace for Kachuk on the season. And it's not for lack of minutes. Like on the season, it's an 18.5 minute per night average. And in the last 5 games, it's 20. So that's not the problem here. His metrics are good, not as good as they usually are. Like he's leading the league in shots per 60, second in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 on the season. But in the last 5 games, it's 32nd shots per 60, 47th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. So the underlying metrics are not even as good as they usually are for a guy of Brady Kachuk's stature. But still pretty solid overall. 62% IPP, 9.9% shooting percentage, 11.7% on ice shooting percentage on the season. That's not like insane, I don't think, when looking at what Kachuk has done in the past. I had him for 77 points at the beginning of the season. That was with 19 minutes, 15 seconds average time on ice. So on the season, him being at 18 and a half. It's not quite there. What is your take on Brady here? Do you think there's something else going on, or what should we expect from him moving forward?
It's weird. Yeah. I had him for a big projection too. 79 points. Bang. That's probably not going to happen. But yeah, it's just he's a valuable player. Obviously, he's a game breaker in his own way, but it's not necessarily on the score sheet, right? And that's what we need for fantasy. This is kind of a supplementary piece. He's not that guy that can drive offense the way like a Timmy Stutz can. You know what I mean? He's kind of just a like an old school guy. You know, crash the net, crash the boards, like just bat the puck. Is he's not ultra talented, and something we talked about last year, and it's worth mentioning again. Something I read in Jack Hahn's Hockey Tactics is like, yeah, this guy gets a lot of shots and a lot of scoring chances, but a lot of those shots and scoring chances come from really in tight the goalie. And if you've played hockey and the puck's in front of the goalie, but he's squared up to you, like what kind of chance is that really? Like that's considered a high danger chance, but when you're in so close on the goalie, there's not a real good chance that you're going to put that by him, right? Not these NHL tendies. So I think there's some truth to that. This is a guy that needs to maybe make a little more space for himself, step back out from the net a little bit and try and put those pucks in. But I think a lot of his play here, like his poor play or lack of production, has been at 5-on-5, right? His power play numbers are actually pretty good. He's got 15 power play points, 9 goals already. Like his career high is 12. So he should smash that. But at even strength, Like his IPP is down, his shooting percentage is way down, like half of what it was last year. Right. And that show ain't no good. The individual scoring chances for are down. And I just think that I wonder what the effect of Travis Green as the coach there has been, because we sometimes forget, like, they got a new coach over there. So it's not the same old story that Tkachuk has been used to, where he's sort of been thriving and where he put up 74 points last year and 37 goals. It's a different environment, and maybe he's still trying to find his role there with that line that he's on. So that all said, moving forward, like, he's on a 66-point pace. I think that's low. I feel like this is a guy that should be in the 70s, right? But he's going to have to start bearing down on his chances. He's shooting 9.9% on the year, buddy. Put the biscuit in the basket, my man. Oh God. Or just drive right through the goalie. Like, get something off your, glove or your head, or I don't know, do whatever you need to do. But yeah, it's not a guy where we can just expect big offensive numbers. I don't think he's ever going to have a real good, efficient season. He's just not that type of player.
Yeah, I mean, 9.9% shooting percentage. It's shocking to see somebody not in the double digits, but like, this is a guy who the last 3 seasons prior, 10.4, 10.1, 10.4. Like, how much more are we realistically expecting him to score? Yeah, I think the bigger problem to me is the ice time being a little bit down here. I thought it might go up this year under the new coach, being the captain, leader of the team. But yeah, it's actually like a down season, like the chance generation. I mean, we talked about some of this in the offseason too. Like, for all his faults as a coach, DJ Smith did encourage an offensive environment, and Brady Tkachuk put up some really huge underlying numbers in terms of chance generation under DJ Smith, and they're not quite as good this year. He's still leading the league in shots per 60, but he's down almost a full shot per 60 from last year, if you can believe that. So, yeah, there is a reduction, I think, there in Brady Tkachuk's ceiling, just by virtue of the deployment and the change in coaching style. And we should take that into account. But obviously, he's going to be better than this moving forward. I have no doubt of that. Just the question now is how much better. And I don't think it's like, I don't think you're getting, like a fantasy MVP type season out of Brady Tkachuk this year. Ivan Barbashev is the next player up. He'd been like a big time win for a lot of people early on in the year, but now he's gone pointless in his last 5. Might be even more for him as well. I'm doing the same thing here I did with Brady, but he's only been 5 games back from the injury, but they also kind of did put these lines into a blender. He ended the night on a line with William Karlsson and Victor Olofsson, actually. That was his last shift that he took. And so, yeah, if he's not going to be attached to Eichel and Stone the way he was for the vast majority of the first half of the season, like, this is not a player who can do it for himself, in my opinion. So, Ivan Barbashev, I think, is droppable if you need to, if this kind of deployment continues, if he's not going to be getting that top line, top power play kind of exposure that he was earlier in the year. That's my take. What do you think, Blake? Do you hold out more hope for Barbashev than I do?
Come on, Bobby, let's go party. Oh, sorry. It's a good song, everybody. Aqua. Was that before your time?
It was before my time, but I do know that song.
What about the Venga Boys? Did you ever listen to that one?
No.
The Venga Boys are coming and everybody's jumping. You never heard that one?
I know that song.
In San Francisco. That's Ivan Barbashev's theme song. You would think it would be "Come On, Bobby," but no, he just listens to Venga Boys on repeat, and that's fine, and that's probably part of his downfall here. You need to stop that, Ivan. But this guy was always a massive sell high, like insane efficiency. He's still, even with this like cold streak, he's still shooting 25%. Like, what?
Yeah.
No. All right. He's got 1 power play point on the year. 1. Okay, so this is, again, this guy's a passenger. He's in the sidecar. You got Jack Eichel driving the main hog, all right? The juicy hog. He's there, and Ivan Barbashev's in the sidecar with that little helmet. You know what I'm saying? Like that little bowl, right? And probably a propeller on top. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, okay? But it's not a guy I'm into at all. I never was, but it's one of those guys. Like, he's kind of like Martin Necas, although I like Martin Necas a lot more than Barbashev. Like, it's a guy you just enjoyed the production. And then now I really do feel like you can get rid of this guy. No problem. Like, no one's going to be jumping to the wire and be like, Ivan Barbashev, yes, please. Like, look at this. He's on a 68-point pace. No. All right. Like, that's not real, folks. I'm sorry to say. I think he has way more ways that he can disappoint you than he does ways where he can exceed those expectations, right? So enjoy what you got from Barbashev and move on. But I mean, if he does still play with Mark Stone and Jack Eichel, he's going to be a great streamer when Vegas has a good schedule. And plus, in a banger league, he does that. He bangs. So yeah, if you're in a banger league, you probably want to hold on to Barbie. But I don't know. It's not inspiring, is it, Nate?
No, it's not inspiring. Yeah, I think Barbashev is a completely deployment dependent player, and for me, those kind of players have to be more streamer level than anything else. Just to be clear, you're not totally equating Martin Necas with Ivan Barbashev moving forward, right?
No, but you know what I mean? It's like, wow, we got all that production. Like just be grateful for what you got and don't worry about what you're not getting now. That's basically the
Right.
lesson I'm telling people with Ivan Barbashev. Martin Necas, you hold until the wheels fall off. All right. This
Right.
man's a legend. Oh my God. Like just an absolute league winner, right, Nate?
Even if he's ranked 375th in
No,
individual
no, no,
scoring
no.
chances for per
Don't
60 over the last five.
no, don't fact check me on this, Nate. All right. He's a distributor. All right. You know, the shot assists and the chance assists. He
Right.
balls out in that. You know what I'm talking about.
Right. Okay. Just checking.
That's an
Let's
agreement
move on.
there. He's agreeing with me, folks. That's fine.
Let's move on to Quentin Byfield. One assist his last 20 and a half minutes average time on ice. Most deployment probably ever for Quentin Byfield. 213th shots per 60, 257 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. This is why I was finding it pretty hard to get excited about Byfield, even when he was hot there for that moment in time. It feels like this is sometimes what we gotta take with these players. I feel like we get way over our skis when a guy that we all really want to pop off
Yeah.
pops off for 5 games. We're like, finally, it's here. He's gonna do this for the rest of his career, and everybody just thinks that that's what happens. So rarely is that what happens, and the underlying numbers were not bearing it out. And so that's why I was a bit cautious in trying to temper excitement about him at the time. You look up and it's a 17 goal, 40-point pace for Quentin Byfield, and I don't know how much better it's realistically going to get. Like the on ice shooting percentage is high, but the IPP is low. It probably evens out a bit there. And yeah, maybe like 45, 50 points is the best that we're seeing for Byfield right now in his current deployment. How do you see it, Blake?
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right there. It's like we got our boys and we're like, come on, buddy, it's Byfield time, right? But the fact is, this guy's 22. Okay, like this is a player I think that might be the guy that we want him to be in a couple years,
Yeah.
right? But like right now, no, I'm just happy. Like he's getting 20 minutes a night. That's amazing, and he's a great player. He's great defensively as well. He really fits well into what LA is doing there, like that kind of low event hockey there, defensively responsible. Byfield does that. He's a great skater. He's a good distributor, but yeah, 40-point pace. That is low. I think that's low, but I don't know that he has much more than the 55 points that he had last season, right? Like you love when a guy's on power play one and he's cooking and he's getting all those minutes, but I don't know. LA's power play, not very good. Okay. Like they're just not good. So, I mean, power play one on LA, we got to temper expectations. And Quentin Byfield's not the guy on that either. Like we got Kempe out there, right? Like that's who it's going through. Kopitar. These are the guys that it's running through, not Byfield. So, yeah, you were right to temper expectations on Byfield, and it's still a guy that I think is a couple years away. But you know, I've said it earlier about another player, but the bones of a real solid fantasy player, I think, are here with Quentin Byfield. But he's got to take another step in his development.
For sure. Don't disagree with any of that. Let's move on to Elias Pettersson. Pettersson not having a lot of fun as of late. One assist in his last 5, still over 19 minutes a night. 315th shots per 60, 223 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 21 goals, 61-point pace. Let's assume, for the sake of argument here, Blake, that JT Miller is moved sometime this week and they get somebody decent. Like the Canucks are not making this trade without an NHL caliber player coming back to replace Miller on the power play. Maybe he's not as good as Miller, but like somebody legitimate is coming back. Let's say it's Lafreniere. Lafreniere comes back in the JT Miller trade. What is the outlook for Elias Pettersson moving forward?
Well, I think we've seen a little bit of proof of concept when Miller was injured or he was sitting out for whatever he was doing there. And I talked about this with Kevin Woodley when I had him on, and it was a really interesting piece is that, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, look at what Elias Pettersson did when Miller was gone. He popped off. He had a good point streak. He was playing light. He was playing loose. And, you know, I mentioned that to him and Woodley kind of came back at me saying like, well, he thinks one of the reasons that Pettersson had a better time with Miller out of the lineup is he had more access to Quinn Hughes. Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Because this team over here in Vancouver, it's two teams. It's the team with Quinn Hughes on the ice and the team without Quinn Hughes on the ice, right? So when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, they're generating some really good offense, good chances, but they're having a real hard time doing that without him. So, long story short, I think Miller out of the lineup is going to benefit Pettersson, unless Pettersson and Miller play on the same line, which they're not doing at the current moment, right? So, yeah, this has been a really garbage season for Pettersson. There's no question. It's hard to put your finger on it. I think this is a sensitive guy as well, and he's struggling a little bit with the market, the Vancouver market, and having to be accountable for these games, and obviously his new salary, right? Like you pay a guy this kind of money. $11.6 million a season, you have a right to expectations, and he's just really not living up to that. And it's been a long time. So, I think if Miller does get traded, I think it's going to be a boost for Pettersson. But what does he look like rest of the season? I do think this guy is a superstar in this league, but not this season, right? I think we could see maybe a point per game Pettersson moving forward. And if Miller does stay, like, they're going to have to figure it out. But I think it is going to, chew away at Pettersson's production a little bit. And maybe we see like a 70-point Pettersson.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting line of thought. I do really struggle with where to put Pettersson. I've been down on Pettersson relative to a lot of people's expectations. I still feel like that one season where he absolutely popped off has played into people's minds and like kind of elevated his stock in my mind a little bit above where the player actually is. I projected him for 35 goals, 84 points at the start of the season. That was with 20 minutes a night. I honestly don't know if there's 70 points feels safe as a point pace rest of season, assuming the Miller trade. But do I think he can get back to that point per game and maybe plus? I don't know at this point with Pettersson. I'd like to believe, you can probably buy somewhat low on Pettersson at this point. But it is taking a shot because he's not really showing us anything under the hood to suggest that it's coming back anytime soon. So you are just kind of betting on the fact that JT Miller is the problem with Elias Pettersson, which seems like totally crazy as a just general statement to make about a hockey player's ability to shoot the puck in a hockey game. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe there is something there. So
it's in there for sure. Like it's in there. Also, his power play performance has been god awful this year, and they've kind of went away from him. It's been Miller and Hughes on that power play, sort of moving it back and forth, and Pettersson's sort of left out in the cold.
Yeah. I think there is something to that as well. Like they've got to find a way to get back to utilizing his shot on that flank. But either way, like I think I've just always started from a different place than a lot of people. Like I don't think he's a superstar level player in the league. I don't think he's worth 11 plus million. So I just think like he's a really good player. Like he's more Sebastian Aho to me than he is like the next tier guys. So
I like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on Pettersson. We got to get through this. We got to get through Nazem Kadri, 1 assist, his last 19 minutes nights, 55th in shots per 60, down on 179th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. On the season, 6th in shots per 60, 13th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. He does that. What do you think about Kadri? I'm just getting kind of fed up with a lot of these guys. Like he's playing with Huberdeau and Pospisil as of late, but they're running this split power play, and it's really just kind of killing a lot of value for a lot of these players. It's kind of elevating the secondary guys like the Colemans, the Coronados, but it's kind of killing the guys who you thought were going to be on the top power play, like Kadri, like Sharangovich, like Uyghur. That's my take. What do you think, Blake?
Yep. I don't have too much to add there. Kadri is a metrics guy that we like, but also Calgary is not a great offensive environment, right? They're getting the job done with hard work and some luck, but
goaltending.
Yeah, and goaltending, exactly. Like Wolf has been out of his mind this year. So it like you said, where they're starting to prioritize some younger guys, and it's just not a great place to be. I think I'd be looking to maybe get off Kadri, like him have a good game or something like that, and then maybe you can move off him, because I think moving forward in the season they will prioritize those young guys, right? Guys like Coronado, guys like Sharangovich, Zari when he comes back. I think they're probably going to get a little bit more run. So Nazem Kadri, thank you for your service. Get the hell off my squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm hanging on to Kadri in some spots. Calgary's in a playoff position as of today. There's obviously a lot of teams circling around that, but as of today, they're right there. So I don't know if they can afford the luxury of bringing along other players. My money's still on like 65 point pace Kadri rest of season. I don't know if I could go much higher with the split power play, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's still going to be valuable. I don't think I'm dropping him just yet, but I am lowering my expectations based on that power play deployment. Same for Mackenzie Weegar, 0 points his last five. The shots are down. He's typically been a shot producer, and that's been one of the things we like about him, obviously, to go with the hits and blocks. But a 9 goal, 40 point pace, I think he can do better than that, but not by much. I think maybe, yeah, like a 10 goal, but like 45 point pace. Like it's really incremental at this point. He really is like more in that Moritz Seider category for me, and
Mhm.
Seider's even been above that with how hot the Wings have been since the coaching change there. So, yeah, it's kind of flip flopped in terms of who I'd rather have in the last little bit. So, interesting spot there for Uyghur. And then lastly, Brandon Montour here. 0 points in his last five. It's really fallen off for Brandon Montour. 28th in shots per 60, which is okay on the season, sixth amongst all defensemen in shots per 60. But the minutes have come down as of late, and I don't really know what to do with that because if Brandon Montour is not getting minutes, he's not like the most efficient player. He had the one season with Florida where he was pretty efficient, but outside of that, he hasn't ever really been super efficient. And that's a little bit concerning to me, especially on Seattle. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while. Seattle is not doing a whole lot outside of Kako and Schwartz just randomly popping off. So, what's your take on Montour there? And would you rather have Montour or Dunn rest of the season?
Ooh, Montour Dunn. I'm taking Dunn there, no question. Someone actually dropped Dunn in a category league that I'm in. Just dropped him, just straight up dropped Vince Dunn. Like, what are you doing? I don't understand. So I scooped him up. I'm happy to have Vince Dunn on one of my squads. I got Brandon Montour on one squad as well. But yeah, I agree with all you said there. It's the Seattle factor. Like I like Brandon Montour as a fantasy option, but I do think he does need power play one. He needs to be put in those offensive positions, and it's just not there. They're splitting everything up. His power play share is 53%. That's not going to cut it, right? This is a guy that needs a 70% power play share, I think, to really pop. So his power play numbers are going to take a dive this year. He only has 6 on the season, which is shocking. So yeah, I definitely am taking Dunn there for a point pace for Montour moving forward. I mean, he's got 41 right now. I think that's probably like 45 is probably ceiling with everything carrying on the way it is there in Seattle. And then I do have one quick thought on Mackenzie Weegar. Like, he had he really bamboozled us last year with his popping off in the season there. 20 goals, that's nuts, right? This is a guy that was drafted probably much too high this year with too high of expectations, and he has got some power play time this year. 54% power play share, that's nice, but he hasn't been able to do much with it. I mean, he is in terms of points, but the goal scoring has fallen off a cliff as expected. So yeah, I like the Seider comparison there. These are just two guys that I think are supplementary D, and hopefully you've got like 3 guys that are a bunch better on your squad.
All right. Yeah, I don't mind that there.
I left them
The
speechless, folks. Oh, what is it? What, yeah,
Every
thank you,
once in a
Grant.
while.
That's nice. I like that.
Every once in a while. If we did talk about a player that you want to hear about, make sure you join us for Monday's 8 p.m. EST live stream of Puzzling Players. I'll be taking notes from the comments and from the Apples and Juice Discord server throughout the day tomorrow to make sure we talk about the players that you want to hear about there. So get your requests in. Now let's get to another segment. Let's go under the hood with Logan Stankoven. Last 10 games, this was taken before the game here today, but I don't believe Stankoven got any points in the game today. 2 goals, 3 assists, 15, 19 average time on ice, but 8th in shots per 60 is the big one here for Stankoven. He's a chucker, he does that, but he's also shown some ability to be efficient. 65th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 over these 10 games. 67th Corsi, 4 per 60, 64th scoring chances, 4 per 60. So I like Logan Stankoven. I think there's a player here. I think everybody got like really excited and then really down on Stankoven. It's been
Yeah.
a bit of a roller coaster. I think there's still a player here. It's still Dallas, and so you still wonder what the case may be. But I really do think that when he is getting the kind of deployment that we want to see for Logan Stankoven, when he's with the top players and not as in this last game he is with Sam Steele and Oscar Back. Yeah, that's not going to cut it for Logan Stankoven. But in those situations where he's playing with, you know, the Duchesne Ben line when he was playing there, that's where a lot of this shot generation was coming from. He's been playing in OTs for Dallas. They're giving him that deployment, and he's looking good out there. That's a spot where he can excel. So I really do like Logan Stankoven, the player. It really is just about how much deployment we can get out of him and whether he can, you know, get to the next level with that deployment. So I think he probably got unlucky when he started to get that deployment. Now it looks like he's been shuffled a little bit back down the lineup again. So I'm not saying go pick up Logan Stankoven, but this is just kind of like a vote of confidence, I guess, from me in Logan Stankoven. I think we're right. There is a player here, and it's going to happen for him. It may not be this year, but I want to put this bookmark in it for myself more than anything to say, yeah, this guy's for real, and he's going to score points in this league.
Love that, buddy.
All right, let's get over to move of the week. Blake, take us in.
Sure thing. All right. Nothing crazy. I made a last minute move again. This is terrible. In Cacuffle. Don't do this, folks. Again, it's a cautionary tale. Like, last minute moves are not a good idea. Like, it's the game starting in 5 minutes, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll pick up Ville Husso. Yeah, he's getting a start. It's a bad week for streaming, so I'll take that goalie stream. It was terrible, right? I should have known better. He's a goalie coming off a big injury, and he wasn't that good to begin with, right? And then he got pumped, right? And actually gave me negative points there. So yeah, moving forward, I think one thing I need to do a little bit better is look at the actual matchups that the goalies are playing and try and dig in a little bit on the team metrics. I do to some extent, but I feel like I want to do that a little bit more. And then I just don't think that I should be doing these last minute moves. Like, it doesn't make any sense unless something like Mackenzie Blackwood, drops onto your waiver wire, then you make a quick move. But other than that, I'm going to really refocus on getting down to my computer, checking the metrics, and making informed decisions as opposed to these, quick ads that I do while I'm sitting on the can.
All right. Yeah, for myself, I left some points on the bench. I honestly still am not entirely sure how it happened, but I had 4 players going on Friday night in one league, and I left all 4 on the bench. Like, even if it was just like random, like a Yahoo thing, like, you know how Yahoo like just like kind of randomizes your lineup. It seems like every time you add a player and you have to reset your lineup. Even if that was true, like, how did the exact 4 go to the bench? I'll never know, I guess. But yeah, left 34 points on the bench on Friday night. Brian Rust had a nice game. Jack Eichel had some points. Stuff happened. But either way, I just want to say, this is the time of year where you can get a little bit jaded with the fantasy hockey season. You can, take your foot off the gas in some spots. You can stop making all 4 ads in a week, and you can stop checking your lineups before every single day of games and making sure that you've clicked that start active or whatever the button happens to be on your platform of choice. That W's often come down to how well you grind. That's one of the things that I honestly think I do best, is that
Very
I
true.
don't miss things like this very often. Like, I honestly don't. I've missed like bringing a player off IR plus or something. Like, I'll miss an update. Like, that happens to everybody. I definitely do that from time to time, but to like just completely miss setting my lineup and leaving 4 guys on the bench, I've never done that before, at least in recent memory. So yeah, I think you got to check every lineup every day. You got to get in there. You got to commit to the grind. And that does end up being points. That does end up being W's in your matchups at the end of the year. So just a little learn from my mistake. Now, I was absolutely sick about this, but it didn't end up like my team just continued to lay egg after egg and soil themselves for the rest of the weekend. So it didn't actually matter in the grand scheme of things. But if that had been the margin of victory, I would have absolutely been gutted. So
That would have
uh,
hurt.
take some learning from my pain, and don't do this to yourself, folks. It could have been even worse. All right, we got one more order of business left here, Blake. We got to recap the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. And unfortunately, Shane Pinto, the Pinto Bean, 18.25 points, had us an 8-shot night in the middle of that. Yeah, couldn't beat it. Matt Coronado didn't have a terrible week, but it wasn't good enough. 12.75 points for him. And so on the season, it is now 10-5 for Blake. I'm running out of runway to catch up here, Blake. I was just doing the math. Like I got to go 8-2 over the last half of the season. Like 7-3 doesn't even cut it for me to get there by the end of the year at this point. So yeah, I gotta pull it together. It starts this week. Which terrible player are you choosing?
Well, first off, we got to talk about the Pinto Bean. Buddy came through in the clutch. Thank you very much for your service. This week, I'm going to go with my boy and yours, Adam Fantilli. How is this man rostered under 25%? Makes no sense. Power play one, line one. What are we doing, folks?
Yeah, it's a good pick. Obviously, I said what terrible player, and then I can't speak bad about Fantilli. I want to like diss the pick, but yeah, there is a clear top two in my mind this week. Nick Schmaltz and Adam Fantilli. You took Fantilli, so I'll go with Nick Schmaltz, even though Schmaltz absolutely ghosted me the last time. So I see what you're about, Nick Schmaltz. I've got to try to reverse psychology this thing. Remember when I was like so down about Gene Schwartz, and then he absolutely just blew up that week? I gotta somehow reverse psychology this with Nick Schmaltz. So yeah, I know I'm picking Nick Schmaltz, but it's a terrible pick and it'll never happen. He's the absolute worst pick. Congrats on 11-5, Blake. It's gonna happen.
Oh my God,
Do
that
you think
feels
that was
so good.
enough?
It's good. Enough? You know what? Maybe Nick Schmaltz is the new Ross Colton. I don't know. We'll have to come up with a name for him. He's just ghosting us. Buddy, can you help us out? Nate needs a dub here.
All right. Unfortunately, that's going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value. Hope to get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick. Terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.